All right, hi, this is Atticus, and welcome to Railway Empire 2 Fundamentals Designs That Work. We're going to look at what probably is for many of you, particularly better players, your default go-to three-city cluster. We're going to call this LUCMA, no warehouses. And I'm going to go set that up. We're going to work on Boston, which has meat, Albany, which has beer, and New York City, which has cloth. We're going to set up a three-city cluster, those three cities, and I'll be right back after I get this one set up. All right, so we're back. I've got the LUCMA No Warehouses three-city cluster set up. Again, this is meat from Boston, beer from Albany, and cloth from New York. So we have, in this model, you have city-to-city lines that run freight. So you've got freight lines, Boston to Albany, Albany to New York, New York to Boston. And that takes manufactured goods between the three cities. And then for each raw material that you need, you set up a train assigned to each city specifically. So the best example is here, sugar, which is kind of nice and central. We have, in the sugar, we have a line going to Albany from track 1. We have a line going to New York from track 2. And we have a line going to Boston from track 3. And actually, I got that wrong. Forgive me. New York is actually 3 in this case. Boston is 2. Albany is 1 because of the where the cities are relative to the station. But a lot of times I followed Albany, New York, Boston pattern just so I could keep it straight. Anyway, you can note, you'll see that each one of them is set to run full. So they're assigned to a specific track and they run full. And what will happen is they will load up with sugar. Say this train going to Albany will load up with sugar, take it to Albany. It will keep doing that until Albany internal storage for sugar is filled. And then it will sit back here and accumulate. And as soon as Albany has room for 8 more in its storage, it can hold more than 8. It can hold like a dozen or so at the smallest levels. As the cities get bigger, they can store more and more. But it'll start eating through what you've taken it. And then as soon as there are 8 available to take and there's room for 8 in Albany again, the train will run again. So this is a very predictable way to do your city growth because these things run very, very nicely. Now, I've already optimized this one for our startup. And I guess a couple of interesting things, maybe I decided to go way out here for the corn for everybody and the grain for New York and Boston, because it was very clumsy to try to use this right here and have these trains come into Albany. You can see Albany has a fair amount of track already anyway, because a lot of stuff coming through or near there. So that's one thing. And I've got a direct line grain going into Albany because that's the beer source, right? So it's going to need a lot of beer. We've got the wood, the lumber goes, a train going this way to New York, a train going that way to Albany, and then there's a wool line that goes down here. Now, from New York, the lumber and wool, either one could come out and go to New York, but there's one line that prioritizes lumber, one that prioritizes wool to make sure they both get taken down there. And then kind of a classic one here, this is almost based on similar to what we did with that fancy warehouse back in the last video. The Massachusetts fruit here, it's set up for a train going on it, and then each one of those has, just as a quick to show you how to do this, if I have, for example, Albany, and I look at its line, it goes out, it loads up full, goes to Albany, then comes back, and it hits that waypoint right there. And that forces it to shunt or queue up on this set of track right here. There's 3 such sets, one for Albany, one for New York, one for Boston, right? And then that way, if you have a situation where you've got, at a given point in time, if you have trains queuing up, they don't get in the way of trains that could go in there and take goods to other cities. So we've got all that going. Now, a lot of this is extra. You wouldn't do this right up front. Right up front, you would set up your lumber, sugar, grain, and corn, plus your city-to-city lines. And then as you were approaching 35,000 with each city, you would do milk, and then you would add vegetables, and then you would add fruit. kind of in that order to get those done. And if you had enough money, you might do what I just did and set them all up in advance. And we've got cattle going in directly to Boston. Again, 2 lines here, one prioritizing lumber, one prioritizing cattle that could take either product into Boston. And so we're good to go. Let's just let this thing run. It's very simple. There's not much to say about it, really. I guess the other interesting thing while it's running is up here, I did Mashinki loops. I did Mashinki loops. Mashinki is another game that I play and cover on the channel occasionally. And it's a train game, primarily. And it has the ability to turn off the magic flip around. So you have stations where the trains can't go in there and just turn around. If you notice, that train right there came in, did its thing, and turned back around. Well, we can't do that in Mashinki, so you end up having to figure out ways to bring the train in one way and take it out the opposite end, right? So that's where these loops come from. All the trains come up, we look at directions. All the trains going out here would come up like this, and then they would split off into 3 different shunt lines, each one of them attached to a different platform. That way you assign the train, like Albany is platform 1, so the Albany trains are always going to come on this inside loop, come in here, and then go out. And then when they go out, all they have to do is be able to all come over into the same track to get out and go into what looks like more of a traditional double track out here. Did the same thing with the veggies, and I did that just because of the clumsiness of this. It was hard to put like this guy, it'd be hard to fit that over here. So I went with the Mashinki loop here, and the same thing over here, I went with the Mashinki loop. And they work great. We've used them before. Used to use them quite a bit in Railway Empire, the original game. Have used them a little bit in Railway Empire 2, and they work just fine. Other than that, it's all pretty straightforward. Very easy to control. Now, the plus is just that. It's very easy to control. If you see you're missing something, you could just go check your frequency on that train line that's assigned to bring that good to that city and figure out where your problems are. That's one thing that's great about it. Now, the downside is you would think you save all that money by not building any warehouses, so you would save money on the setup. That's not true. It takes a lot of track to do this because, well, first of all, a lot of times, like here, I have to have 3 platforms for the sugar instead of 1. That's an extra $100,000 in platforms. That will almost cover the cost of a warehouse just from that one product or one raw material. If you take 6 or 7 raw materials, it's easy to pay for the warehouses you need. If you have the warehouses, it's easier to set up your lines actually to do all this. It's actually, the warehouses actually simplify the process once you understand how to use the warehouses. But here's what I love about this approach. See this 99.3? It's going to soon be 100, and it's just going to sit at 100. It will get up to 100%, and it will stay at 100% until milk kicks in. Now, then you get in this very interesting process. I'm going to let this keep running. In fact, I'm going to let this run, and I'll come back in just a moment and show you what happens as it hits each level and requires another good. You actually will drop off your 100%. See how it's creeping up to 100%? All these are at 100%. There's rounding errors here that's causing the mismatch. But it will go to 100% here, and you can watch Albany. There it is. It's 100. It'll stay there. It'll just literally sit there until it hits 35,000. Same thing, we probably already hit that in New York. Let me look. Yep, we're at 100% there. We're probably there in Boston. 99.9, we're headed there. We're almost there. So one of its trains got there slightly later than the other cities, which makes sense. They wouldn't all hit at the same time. There we go. Now we're at 100%. They will just sit there. And now what is going to happen here is we have now if you were playing and you didn't have all the money to set up everything, you would be going along like this, and you'd say, oh, we're starting to hit 35,000. Then you would set up your milk, at least your milk for Albany, and you'd really want your milk for all of them. And when Albany hits 35,000, milk will be required. And I'll be back in just a minute when that happens, and we'll talk about how that looks. And you can kind of see the pattern that you get into with the raw materials. And a little bit later, I'll show you that similar pattern, but with the manufactured goods. By the way, quick aside, look down here. Charlottesville is at 145,000. Big Lick's at 98,000. Norfolk is at 103,000. So this little one city, one train, and we haven't even added more trains to the one city, one line concept, right? One city, one train, excuse me. We haven't even added trains, and it's growing. And this one down here is at 66 and growing nicely, 70 and growing nicely, and I haven't even bothered to put libraries in here to get the boost. Same thing down here. I think these all have, these all have universities now down here. But anyway, there's two more, but designs working great. And look at this. We're continuing with our double-digit growth, 100%. And there we go. Now, we've hit 35,000 here. Now, the milk, when it first comes online, it's at 100%. But that's because you haven't needed it prior to this. But now you do need it. And it's not being satisfied, so that fulfillment demand is dropping. Now watch it drop. But you can see there's 8 on the way. And it's going to drop, and it'll keep dropping there. Now the first milk has arrived, right? And now that it's arrived, this will start creeping back up. And this will come, it's dropped off of 100 now because we're not at 100% on everything. But this is going to creep up, and this is going to creep up. But then we're going to do that same cycle when we hit veggies, because we'll hit veggies. Veggies will start dropping, meaning that we're not giving people the veggies that they want. And then the veggies will fire, and it will deliver. And when that occurs, then see now this is up to 100, and this is 99.6. It's almost 100, but see we're quickly getting toward 40,000. So that's the process for the raw materials. And we can see down here we probably got we've got the milk thing going here in New York. If I can click on the city somewhere. So here we go. There, milk. We've gotten some in now. It's already up to 100, and it's moving back up quickly. So we're about to hit 40,000 on these cities. So let's just stick around and put some industries in. And our industries, the plan's the same, simple thing. I'm going to pause. We've got our first industry opportunity. We're going to put clothing here. That would be your first choice. The next one would be the sawmill. So sure enough, let's put a sawmill in Albany. Okay, so there we go. We're going to bump it up. This is something you do over time as money became available to you and the need became out there, right? Because right now nobody needs the planks. Nobody's that big yet, but they're going to be very shortly, right? So we're going to bump this up to make at least 3, 1 for each city. And there we go. Now we're covered with planks for the cities. All right. And we're going to let this keep going, and we'll see New York there. New York just hit. We're going to take New York and give it clothing. And we will bump it up to, unfortunately, you have to go to a level 3 to make the 3 to make sure you can cover all 3 cities. And the interesting thing there is that this just shows you how these are, well, it's okay here. I said unfortunate. It's not unfortunate in this case. We got a 3-city cluster, so making 3 is fine. Where it kind of gets you is like down here. I mentioned this in the last video, how you overproduce a little bit down here. And yes, you could take overproduction here, ship it up here, overproduction here, ship it up here, and put other industries in here. Of course you could. But we're kind of treating these as each one of them is more or less standalone, with the exception of how we did the +1 from Pittsburgh to help this one, because we only had 2 cities, right? So here we go. Now we're growing. Now we're going to get, Boston's going to hit 40,000 here very shortly. And we'll put distillery in there. We've got fruit and sugar nearby. And when Boston hits its 40,000, we'll bump it up. So now Boston, you can see, hit that 35. It took a while to get the milk there, but we've kind of settled back into the milk. Boston's a little far away from some of the resources, and so it's growing back up to 100. But it's going to start wanting at 40. It's going to start wanting the vegetables. Here, it just hit it. It wants vegetables now. So we should see the train out here that's hauling vegetables to Boston. It should be loading up, and as soon as they're available, and bringing them in. And there is a delay in how quickly the raw material owners will ramp up. See, there's one coming. That means we've just managed to get one available. So Boston is going to slow down a little bit, but that's okay. We're bringing them in there as quickly as we can, and we're going to go grab a distillery and throw it in Boston. We're going to pump it up till it's producing a 3, and we see here that for sugar and fruit we need one of these produces 2 of these. One of these produces 2 of these. So you can have like a 1-to-2 ratio. So if you're going to do 3 alcohol, you need like 1.5, 1.6 actually. Sugar, and 1 for the city, 2.6. We could round that up to 3 and say we would want our Boston sugar line to be an 18 frequency, and we can see that it is a 14, so we're good. And we know this one's going to be good too. It's even closer, nearly as close. So any way you look at it, we're good for supplying the sugar and fruit we need into here. We'll also start seeing sugar to Boston. Yeah, right here. This guy should start loading as soon as this owner here ramps up and recognizes that he's got the extra revenue capabilities. Now, the other thing, of course, is that what happens now with the industries is they'll start making up to the size of their storage for shipment out. So these are going to sit here ready to go. Now, they're just like a raw material in that respect. So when you look over here at Albany, it's going to grow, and when it hits 50,000, see, it's got some fruit now. When it hits 50,000, it's going to want the clothing. Well, we're already set up with a city-to-city line from New York to Albany, and we've already made a bunch of dresses, a bunch of clothes. So as soon as Albany hits 50,000, the line that's going between New York and Albany will start shipping the clothing over there, and we'll be in great shape. Now, we could think of those city-to-city lines to optimize them, as now there's going to be 2 products coming in each direction, so we would want a frequency of 28. If we look at our Albany to New York City freight, see, there's cloth and clothing going over there to Albany, and it's a 15. It's in great shape. So our lines are probably pretty good. The longer ones are to Boston. We might want to take a look at them. Here's Boston freight to New York City is a 20, and we want a 28. That's fine. Albany's going to be fine. We're in great shape. This can just keep on going and just keep on growing. And as I said, this one's just really a trade-off thing. This is really easy to manage this, really easy to make sure we've got all the stuff going where we need it. You know, it's very easy. You just look at the specific train that brings that particular raw material or finished good into your city, and make sure you got enough on that line, and you are good to go. It's super easy to manage, very efficient, grows very nicely. I would say it grows a little bit better. See how he's 100, now he's dropped off a little bit. He's probably, he's just opened up the need for planks, and he's gotten some planks in there. So, you stay really close to, 95 to 100% as you're growing your cities, and it's just a little bit more efficient than the warehouses, which, because of the loading, unloading, and routing them out, and really the challenge of making sure you have the right number of trains running, the warehouses can be a little bit more complex from that point of view, but easier to set up initially. Believe it or not, it sounds backwards, but it's actually cheaper to set up front, I think, because you can get away with less track. But anyway, this is another beautiful way to do it. This is almost like this is almost like the one I probably should have led with, which is just, don't use warehouses, just go. So that's Look Ma, no warehouses. Look at this. Albany's already at 60,000 and growing at 98%. And we don't even have, look at this. Again, we don't have library in there to help it. It can grow it over, or do we have a library? Well, I want to build one there. Okay. Would you like to have a library? Sure. Would you like to have a library? Sure. Sure you would. Okay. So now they'll grow it over 100%, and grow very, very nicely. And again, as I've covered in other videos, if you have immigration office, use that as long as you can keep your fulfillment over 61%, because you'll get faster growth than using the library. But if you struggle keeping it up at 100, use your library. So there you go. There's Look Mom, no warehouses. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it'll help you become a better player. I hope you'll like, share, comment, and subscribe, and join us for our next Railway Empire 2 video. Thank you.